Still on Sonic Mega Collection Plus. It's time for Sonic Drift. Sonic Drift, I think I'm defining beating the game as beating all 3 Grand Prix. And I'm probably gonna play as Sonic. I know a lot of people play as Amy, but Sonic is fast, and if he gets rings, you can get a boost power-up, if I can remember how to use it. But yeah, Sonic Drift, definitely a fairly hated game, I feel. And I think it's definitely overhated. I don't think a lot of the criticisms against the game are very fair. And I honestly think it's just a very fun game. It's obviously not the best racing game. There's racing games with way more depth. But it's pretty fast. The controls are pretty good. And it's just very fun to navigate. But I think there's 3 main reasons people hate this game. And I don't think really any of them are fair. I think the main reason people probably don't like this game is because they probably don't know how to play the game. Because in this game, it's called Sonic Drift, and you do have to drift. There is a brake button, and anytime you're on a turn, you have to use that brake button. You can either just hold the brake button to get like a super drift, or you can I tend to just tap the button, mash it if it's a really tight turn, and then just also, I'm not always constantly holding the drift button, or the turn button rather. Sometimes I'm tapping that as well. Just adjusting to the turn. I think some people try and play the game, they don't know that you have to drift, so they just hold one of the directions, hit a sign, and they think, oh, this game's terrible, and then stop playing. And that's not very fair to not know how to play the game, and then blame the game for you not knowing how to play. I'm going to do this race in small screen. Because this game has it to where on any of the Game Gear games, you can click in the right stick, and it'll change the size of the screen. So this is more akin to what the screen size would have been on the Game Gear, if you were playing on a Game Gear. But it doesn't, like, really work out, because if you're playing the Game Gear, you're probably holding it closer to you. So I would have the Game Gear a lot closer to me than my TV currently is. I mean, it's still not that bad to play. Maybe some of the other, like, platforming games would be pretty hard on a screen this small. But, it's fine for Drift. I think the second reason people tend to hate this game, that I think isn't fair, is people expect too much from the Game Gear. I think there's definitely a problem where people want to compare every game to modern standards. And you just have to remember, this is on the Sega Game Gear, a console that, sure, it was more powerful than the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color, but it's not even as powerful as the Genesis or SNES. So obviously, they were gonna be able to make the most in-depth racing game you could on a not super powerful console. So yeah, it's gonna be bare bones, it's gonna be a little jank, the graphics aren't gonna be that great, it's gonna have this weird, it looks like the track is like coming towards you rather than it feeling like you're moving forward. And I don't know, I feel like it's important to understand the context in which games came out. That doesn't mean you have to like the game. If you know how to play the game and you accept that it is a game made on low-powered hardware, if you still don't like the game, that's fine. I just don't think you should say it's a terrible game because they were too limited in what they could do. And I would be interested to see if there are other racing games on the Game Gear. How do those racing games do it? What are the other concepts you could do to try and make a racing game work well on hardware like this? Because on older hardware, there are definitely racing games on them. They may not be the 3D racing games like Super Mario Kart or Stun Race FX or anything. Can you beat Stun Race FX? I'll need to play that if possible. I actually really like... Well, I can't say I really like because I've only played it a tiny bit. But I enjoyed Stun Race FX from what I played of it. I feel like that game is also kind of criticized for its like weird visuals. But I thought it was fun from the little bit I played of it. We know not every racing game on older hardware uses this kind of format of it's trying to be 3D, so you see like the back view of your character and you have turns and items and whatever. You also have games like I don't remember what it's called, but there are definitely ones that are kind of more like Top Ride and Kirby Air Ride, where it's a top-down view and you move around the track. There's Excite Bike, which is more of instead of you're turning left and right, you're moving up and down. Which I need to see if you can beat Excite Bike as well. I really like Excite Bike. I think Excite Bike is just a really fun game. And so seeing just like what concepts work better for these older types of hardware that couldn't do as much, I think would be interesting and could also put Sonic Drift into more perspective, I think. You know, seeing kind of, not only is this is limited hardware, so they couldn't do a whole lot with the concept, but how were other games doing it? Did other games figure out better solutions for it? And is Sonic Drift kind of just mediocre compared to what you actually could do on the Game Gear? That would be what I would want to know. Or is Drift one of the better examples of how you can do a racing game on the Game Gear? But, I mean, honestly, I only know 2 racing games on the Game Gear. Just this game and Sonic Drift 2. Which I don't even... From my memory, I don't think Drift 2 is as good as Drift 1. But it's been a while since I've played Drift 2. Drift 2 is probably viable. I would just need to find a way to play it, because it is not on Mega Collection Plus. So I'd have to find a different place to play it. Is it on Gems Collection? I might actually have Gems Collection. Or at least know someone who has Gems Collection that I could borrow. I need to see what games are on Gems Collection. Is Sonic the Fighters? Is that... viable? Is that a game where if you game over, you just lose, or do you just keep going until you win? Because Sonic the Fighters would be viable. Or actually, that's an interesting point as well. Is some games will do it to where, like old arcade games, will make it to where, like, once you just get a game over, instead of being able to put in a credit and just continue where you left off, you just have to restart the entire game. But there are some versions where you can just keep putting in those credits and keep playing the game. And so if on, say, Gems Collection, if Fighters is on Gems Collection, or no, it's on Xbox Live Arcade. I might have it on Xbox One or 360 or something. But if it is the case where in those versions, if you get a game over, it's just start the game over. I think if you play it in the Yakuza games, you could just keep putting in extra credits and play till you win. So it might be some of these fighting games that I maybe wouldn't be able to do otherwise, like Virtua Fighter, or what are some of the other ones in Yakuza? Sonic the Fighters, Virtua Fighter. I can't remember what the other ones are, but if you can just keep putting in infinite credits and just play till you win, that would definitely be games I could do. I would just need to figure out what Yakuza games have which arcade games and which ones are beatable. Because I know Lost Judgment has Sonic the Fighters, but Lost Judgment's one of the few Ryuga Gotoku games that I have not played yet, because I just finished Judgment not too long ago. And there's a lot I liked about Judgment, like story-wise, but gameplay-wise, I honestly think Judgment might be one of the weakest Ryuga Gotoku games. I'm hoping Lost Judgment really fixes a lot of my issues with it. And then also I'm hoping Kiwami 3 fixes my issues with Yakuza 3. Because I think the three weakest Ryuga Gotoku games to me are Judgment, Yakuza 3, and Yakuza 6. Because I really didn't care for Yakuza 6. But I know, like, I think Sonic the Fighters was first in Lost Judgment, but it is in another Yakuza game. I just can't remember if it's Pirate Yakuza or if it's Infinite Wealth. It might be Infinite Wealth. Which, I mean, either of those works. I do have completed files for those games. They'll just be making sure I have enough money to keep infinitely trying, which, I mean, is not that big of a deal. And then I know some of them have Virtua Fighter. I think Kiwami 2 has Virtua Fighter. And then Pirate Yakuza has one game that's kind of more of a beat 'em up, and I need to see if you can beat that. Because if you can, I played a tiny bit of it in Pirate Yakuza, and I don't even remember what it's called. But it was actually a pretty cool game. Arcade games are definitely interesting. You know, seeing just which ones you can beat and which ones are just infinite games that don't really have an end. Because if they're if they do have an ending, and you can beat them, and you can just, there's no like real penalty for getting a game over, except maybe the level restarts. Then, I mean, a lot of arcade games are probably pretty viable in that scenario. But I also think if an arcade game, all it really needs is it has to have an ending. Something that signifies you have completed the game. Which a game like Pac-Man doesn't have. Right? Pac-Man just keeps going until literally the game cannot go anymore. If the game could go more, it would go more. But I think it also... So my thumb hurts from holding this. Well, I'm holding it in a weird way. I should probably hold it in a way that's less painful. But if there's an arcade game that has... Also, this is a way quicker pace than I was thinking. I was thinking it was 10 minutes per Grand Prix. Yeah, it's been more like 8 minutes. 7.5, really. But... But sometimes I think there may be some examples of arcade games where it'll have kind of an ending screen that does say you've beaten the game, but then you continue after that point, and it still loops, like, endlessly. But there still is that point that says you have beaten the game. Also, I do need to win the Grand Prix. I can't lose every Grand Prix and say that that's good, so I do need to really try and win. It's just a little hard to get past the other racers because I kept bumping into them, which that's definitely something I don't think should have been in this game, where you can bump into into your opponents, because the track is not wide enough to be able to very easily maneuver past people. Although you start in the front if you got first, so... It's really just the first race where that's a problem. I don't know if this game has multiplayer. I think Drift 2 does, I don't know if this game does. But yeah, if a game does have an actual, like, ending screen, even if it loops, I still think that counts as beating it. Because, again, if you think about, like, say, the Yakuza games, you get the ending, you beat the game, you beat the final boss, you get the credits, and then the game says you unlock premium adventure and you can continue and do extra bonus things. But you wouldn't say that that technically makes the game infinite and you can't beat the game, because no, you did beat the game. There's just extra you can do afterwards, and I think that would be the same if an arcade game kind of had an ending and then continued looping. And I guess that would mean you'd have to look into original Pac-Man and see what is that final cutscene. Is that final cutscene technically the end of the game, and then the game just loops after that? I don't know. I still don't think that makes Pac-Man viable, though, because you'd have to beat, like, level 9, and that is not an easy task. At least not for me. The original Pac-Man can be very brutal. I never got that final achievement in Pac-Man World 1 Repack, because you have to beat, like, 10 levels in original Pac-Man. I just have not been able to do that. But it could make other arcade games viable if that is a satisfying definition, which, again, would be per game. And whatever I feel is right, you know, because it's my challenge, I can do whatever I want. But we are very close to nearing the end of the game, because it's just every level from Sonic 1, so all that's left is Labyrinth, Starlight, and Scrap Brain. There's no, like, final zone or anything. That would have been cool, though, if, like, you got the extra final race after beating all the Grand Prix or something. But I think the final reason this game gets criticized, and I think is unfair, is because, just a, you know, dumb joke of, oh, why Sonic in a car? Which, I don't know. I feel like too many Sonic games have come out with Sonic in a car, or on a hoverboard or something where he's not on the ground, that I think it's just a lame argument that doesn't really make any sense. Like, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, oh, Sonic's the fastest thing alive. Why does he need to be in a car? But you also have to remember the only on-foot racing Sonic game we ever got was not well received. So it kind of seems like if that was the argument, this game's bad because Sonic's in a car, then why is the one where Sonic's not in a car not well received? You know? Which that's the only Sonic... No, there's a few Sonic racing games I've never played, but I've never played Sonic R. So I don't know what it's like, but... Still. I also just don't think the argument really makes sense of, oh, Sonic's the fastest thing alive, so he doesn't need to be in a car, but, I mean, what if he wants to drive a car? Like, driving a car is different from running. It's just a different experience, you know? Like, I don't know, I feel like people just don't have a single thing they do, and then they just always prefer to do it that way. I don't think it's necessarily that Sonic would always want to be on foot, especially because who's going to challenge him in a race on foot? If he wanted to race people, he would have to have some sort of way where he could. Because if it wasn't on foot race, then no one's going to even bother trying to compete with him. I'll do the last race in small screen. So that's actually interesting. On OBS, kind of looks completely black around the screen. Oh, no, it doesn't. I guess it's just my capture card settings, because, on my TV's brighter than what the capture card is picking up. So there's very pronounced gray lines, light gray lines, around the screen, and that's not picking up quite as well on OBS. Yeah, I do also think I'm more partial to this game just because I'm a really big fan of racing games. Racing game is most definitely my favorite genre. But you put a decent racing game in front of me, I'm gonna have a lot of fun. Regardless of if it's the best well-made racing game or whatever. As long as it's fun, and I go fast, and I do cool things on turns, I'm just gonna have fun. And so I have a lot of fun with Sonic Drift. I have a lot of fun with Pac-Man World Rally. I have a lot of fun with Rayman Arena. That's one of my favorite racing games. Like all these games that people say are either just mediocre or bad, I can still have a lot of fun with them. Because I just really like racing games. Doesn't mean I like every racing game. Iridium Runners kind of really sucks. And there's probably some other racing games I can't think of off the top of my head. But I do really like this game. I think it's really good. And I just enjoy playing it every now and then. But that is definitely way shorter than I thought it was going to be. I was thinking 30 minutes, but only 23 minutes. And there still are a couple really short Sonic games to do on Mega Collection Plus, but I'm slowing down on the ones that I'm like super confident in doing. Some of the games are maybe a little trickier, or I'm not entirely sure of the solutions. So I think the next one is just Sonic Blast, and then I'll have to consider how viable I think like Sonic 1 or Sonic Chaos or Labyrinth are. But most of them are probably fairly viable.